this is an iHeart podcast.
Welcome in the Thursday edition, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show. I don't know if Buck knows this, but the NFL is back, and a lot of you are going to be watching tonight. A lot of you watched the Texas and Ohio State game. Buck, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing for you, but football is setting all-time record ratings, the likes of which have never been seen before. And I've got a theory on what it represents, and it ties in with another fun story that I thought we could jump into here. And it ties in with the cultural pendulum having swung in a massive direction back to sanity. And I think you have to give Donald Trump a lot of credit for this, but I think he is symptomatic of where the country is moving. And I've got a bunch of takes on this as the data comes out. Let me give you an idea of where we're headed, by the way. In the third hour, we've got a couple of fun guests for you. Katie Miller. She has got a brand new podcast. She is interviewing a lot of people. She was Elon Musk's top assistant in the White House. She is the wife of Stephen Miller, who many of you have heard on this program for a very long time, among the most influential advisors in the White House. Deputy Chief of Staff, I think, is his official title beneath Susie Wiles. She is going to be on with us in the third hour to talk about some of these cultural trends. 2:30, part of the Clay and Buck Podcast Network, Dr. Nicole Sapphire. Many of you obviously see her on Fox News on a regular basis as well. She will join us. So that is all come in the third hour. But this morning, Buck, as I was getting ready for the show, as I was walking my fifth grader to school, as I do most mornings, the stock market opened. I looked down at my phone. I knew it was going to be a big pop out of the gate, but American Eagle stock, for those of you who saw the Sydney Sweeney advertisements and just said, you know what? I think a pretty girl in jeans and a company that is not apologizing for it is likely to do well. Last night, American Eagle said their Sydney Sweeney ad campaign is so successful that they are now increasing their earnings expectations and their profit expectations. And the stock, as I speak to you all today, is up 32.5% today alone. The stock up $4.50. So if you just heard us talking about this advertisement, if you just saw them talking about it on Fox News and you thought to yourself, you know what? A pretty girl in jeans seems like a pretty good idea. And then as you saw all the controversy stirred up on the left, people saying, oh, this is eugenics. Maybe we can go back and pull the ABC Good Morning America story where they put on the expert to say, oh, this is very troubling. This is calling a blonde-hair, blue-eyed girl saying she has good genes as a pun on Jeans, Genes, a clear double entendre there. If you thought this is all ridiculous, this is going to work, I give credit to American Eagle. They didn't run and hide. I know because my grandma of my kids, my mom, took a picture of my son at back-to-school season standing in front of a Sydney Sweeney ad. I know that even grandmas were aware of this ad campaign, and maybe some of you out there, you bought your kids and your grandkids American Eagle gear just to make a statement on this. Buck, I do think that this is a sign of the culture shift having occurred in a big way. I think the popularity of football going through the roof ratings-wise, I think it's directly connected to this. Pretty girls, sports, it's all coming back together again. It never left popularity, but they wanted to tell us that fat androgynous model is going to sell lingerie. Guess what? America's not crazy. People like football. They like pretty girls. And my goodness, you could have made a lot of money by betting on both.
Well, I want to find out what the next company is that plans to just do an old school, all Americana, good feeling ad. I mean, it seems like a, Clay, as you know, we've talked about marketing execs, Madison Avenue ad execs, are among the most woke as a profession, most woke individuals you'll find anywhere. I mean, they're really up there with like Broadway choreographers in terms of their politics, and they are living in some other planet. And I think because of America's overall prosperity, the dominance of many American companies, they've been able to get away with their ideological, decisions, ideologically based decisions instead of what's based on the company for a long time. That perhaps is in the early stages of changing. We shall see. I will say, I haven't seen a change in the advertising kind of companies, I should say, the kind of companies advertising in conservative media. Haven't seen that happen yet. We were hearing, early rumbles that this may go on. And now I think there's a little more of a wait and see. Trump's first year. Let's see if he stays focused and stays on it. But I think that consumers and the American people need to continue to push. And that just means be vocal about your preferences and put your dollars where your heart is. Actually make decisions based upon where companies align with your values. And in some cases, it's just fun and liking America and wanting to sell a good product. That can align with your values. It doesn't have to be, everything is draped in an American flag and talks about defeating the communists, although that's fine too. But just here trying to use the oldest trick in the marketing book, a beautiful woman selling a product to people that they will like. It turns out that still works if you're willing to do it. It certainly works better than a 300-pound androgynous, purple hair, ear plugged, whatever we're dealing with. It's crazy.
I do think that the retreat that you saw from Cracker Barrel, and this is where the impact of Bud Light really comes in, because I've heard so many people out there, they get sometimes upset when we talk about culture, not just on this program, but on all programs. And they're like, tell me more about the tax plan for small businesses. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of lower taxes, all these things. But culture is how you win. I'm sorry, culture. The older I get, in all facets, your company's culture is how you win. Your team, both as a actual athletic team and just the team around you, your family. Culture is how you win. Culture. And you have to win culture. And what I am seeing right now is Buck's point. I told you guys this about FanDuel yesterday, and I got a lot of reaction to it. I don't think most people outside of media understand that the advertising agencies are the wokest part of American life, and they are the bottleneck that is putting all this ridiculousness, I would argue a lot of it is filth, out into the larger cultural arena because they control so much of the access to the marketplace. And they were the ones pushing all this androgynous models, all this, hey, being 350 pounds, that's how we should sell athletic gear. Hey, let's put an actual man in a Nike sports bra and let's say, hey, girls, go buy Nike sports bras to work out in. I mean, these are the ads that they were putting in. They're the reason Bud Light put this trans influencer on a can in the first place. We have to destroy them. We have to destroy them. And I understand there's a lot of cowardice out there, but that's how you win culture. That is how you go back to some form of normalcy in American life.
And I think that it's incumbent upon everybody to remember this as they're making their decisions. We talk about Crockett Coffee here on the show and how we're already, some of you listen to Joe Pags. Joe Pags is selling Crockett Coffee and Ben Ferguson is selling Crockett Coffee. We're putting money into the broader conservative media economy because Clay and I remember what it was like. I remember in the early days, sponsors that would come on, you have the same thing, sponsors that would stand with you, they felt like family. And that's one of the reasons why we're so attached to many of our longtime sponsors here on this show, because they're with us shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, they're trying to offer up great products to all of you, but they be very clear about this. And I don't ever want to make it feel like this is something we don't talk about. They make, every sponsor on this and other conservative programs out there, they make a decision to stand with you, all of you, and your values, because there are a lot of companies out there that we would make a ton of money for by just telling you about their great products. And they're like, I'm sorry, Have you heard what Clay Travis says about trans guys playing on women's field hockey? Have you heard what Buck Sexton said about COVID lockdowns and Fauci? And I'm that is the God's honest truth. That is exactly what goes on.
This is one where strategically the left understands how to win culture better. They created, and again, we're taking you into the weeds a little bit, but I think it's important for you guys to understand it. And certainly Rush lived through it because some of the creation of these groups were designed to try to destroy Rush's show, as many of you well remember. The left created entire companies that all they did was reach out to big brand advertisers and say, are you sure you want to be affiliated with this conservative? By the way, very broadly defined conservative, because I did a sports talk show and I had FanDuel cancel on me over saying men can't be in women's sports. I mean, how many sports gamblers do you think in America believe that men should be able to compete in women's sports? 1%?
I generally don't think the guys who are paying really close attention to which pony's going to come in first or which touchdown is going to be the game winner, sitting there chomping their cigars, are like, you know what we really need? More Futurist female T-shirts.
And by the way, also beer companies. I mean, this is the Cracker Barrel's decision writ large, and I think a lot of these companies are now going to start firing some of these marketing agencies, but they're the ones with the chokehold on culture. You need to see the Sydney Sweeney ad campaign work because cowardice is common and most marketers are not particularly smart and they follow whichever direction they're led. And if they're told put fat chicks into sports bras or put dudes with penises into sports bras to sell women's athletic gear, they'll do it because they're cowards. And that's what they were told.
And you see in the case of the Cracker Barrel and all Cracker Barrel situation, I just want to say this too. I've been reading conservative media and I've, doing all this stuff now since I was in high school. So we're going on 30 years of seeing what the sponsors are, seeing what the climate is and how advertisers and corporations treat anything that half the country, a little niche market known as half the country, fully endorses and supports. And so there is a sense of I don't know if it's a renaissance. It's certainly a turning of the tide. There is a sense that things now under this Trump administration are better than they have ever been in this regard. There's still a lot of work to be done, though, because it's crazy. And you see a lot of these shows, Clay, after Trump's election win, that have been canceled. A lot of these programs they were being propped up by people and companies selling other stuff to you, right? So it's like the corporation is making money selling you toaster ovens or whatever. And then people who are in a media subsidiary that the corporation owns are able to write checks that are subsidized by the toaster ovens that you don't realize are actually paying the bills, so that you can have Stephen Colbert be a not funny jerk on TV every night, making $30 million a year while his staff is getting fired. That is the lib media business model. And once you understand that, it is not free and open fair choice. And once you understand how they've seeded themselves top to bottom in these corporate institutions, how they've decided to use the levers of power and their advantage, Clay, this has been worth presidential elections. I'm just going to say it. I mean, Democrats have been in office at different times because of this apparatus that we are outlining for you right now. So trust me, it matters.
And you have to win the culture wars. And this is why I think this is significant. And we're winning the culture wars. And we're winning young men, and we need to add on more steam. Young women want to look like Sydney Sweeney. Young men want to play football. They want to be bigger, stronger, faster than they are. They don't want to be failures. They don't want to be mediocrities. And this sameness, this cultural androgyny that is being sold by the left, we're lighting it on fire, but we need to pour on more fuel. We need to continue to stack wins. That's why this is important. This is how you stack multiple wins. And I do think we should celebrate and draw attention to companies that are making the right decisions, because other companies will emulate them, because success is contagious. And once somebody has success, others will follow.
Yeah, our civilization is built on the aspiration to greatness, to beauty, to discovery, to be someone who is not just eating the gruel that is handed by the commissars and told what to do and what to wear and how to speak. And now you're seeing that people want to return a restoration to the degree it's possible to an America that wants greatness, beautiful things, and that includes, in some cases, beautiful people. All right, this is the kind of thing that happens in neighborhoods across the country. You know, we've been talking a lot about crime, and someone's home gets broken into, and word gets out on apps like Citizen or Nextdoor, and everyone's on high alert thinking, what if it happens to me? And in some places, in some cases, they don't know what to do. Well, I'm here to give you a great option, and that's Sabre and the products that Sabre has at sabreradio.com. This is for home and personal defense. SABRE radio.com. Sabre products have safeguarded hundreds of thousands of people. Clay and I both have them in our homes. And let me just tell you, if you want to get started with this, I recommend the Clay and Buck Mega Bundle. You'll see this comes with practice rounds. It comes with the Sabre Pepper Projectile Launcher, multiple magazines that feed in, a carrying case, target set. It's all one-stop shop. You just go there. So go to sabreradio.com, my friends. Check this out. SABREradio.com. Pepper sprays, pepper gels, but the Pepper Projectile Launcher and that Mega Bundle, that's what I recommend you get today because that'll get you all set up. Clay and I have been out there practicing with it. We're going to go practice again soon. Go to sabreradio.com. This is in addition for many of you to your 2A. This is in addition to having firearms in the home. Non-lethal options in some cases are the best option. You want force escalation, and some of you just prefer to go non-lethal all the way. sabreradio.com, SABRE radio.com, or call 844-824-SAFE.
Making America great again isn't just one man, it's many. The Team 47 Podcast, Sundays at noon Eastern in the Clay and Buck podcast feed. Find it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now you can stream Fox News live on the Fox One app. Stay on top of breaking news and the biggest stories live as they happen, all from the Fox voices you trust, bringing you the coverage you won't find anywhere else.
Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Go to Fox One for complete terms and conditions. Fox One, we live for live streaming now. Clay, have you heard of the Rio Reset?
Sounds like a trendy new workout, Buck.
It does, but it's actually a big summit going on in Brazil. The formal name is BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, but they've just added 5 new members.
Smart move to stick with BRICS. We know what happens when acronyms don't end. They confuse everyone.
Well, that's an understatement. BRICS is a group of emerging economies hoping to increase their sway in the global financial order.
Now that sounds like the plot line of a movie. I'm listening.
Philip Patrick is our Bruce Wayne. He's a precious metals specialist and a spokesman for the Birch Gold Group. He's on the ground in Rio getting the whole lowdown on what's going on there.
Can he give us some inside intel?
Absolutely. He's been there since day one. In fact, a major theme at the summit is how BRICS nations aim to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar in global trade.
Yikes, that doesn't sound good. We got to get Philip on the line, stat.
Already did, and he left the Clay and Buck audience this message.
The world is moving on from the dollar. Quietly but steadily, these nations are making real progress towards reshaping global trade. And the US dollar is no longer the centerpiece. That shift doesn't happen overnight. But make no mistake, it's already begun.
Thank you, Philip. Protect the value of your savings account, your 401k, your IRA, all of them, by purchasing gold and placing it into those accounts and reducing your exposure to a declining dollar value. Text my name, Buck, to 989898. You get the free information you'll need to make the right decision. You can rely on Birch Gold Group, as I do, to give you the information you need to make an informed decision. One more time, text my name, Buck, to 989898.
Welcome back in. Clay, Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us as we are rolling through the Thursday edition of the program, and we've got a ton of different things that you guys are reacting to. But I did want to play this because I think one of the aspects of Trump and his particular focus on crime is it actually is connecting with a lot of people out there that are having to deal with legitimate crime. And here is a grandmother of a Chicago crime victim speaking to Fox News about what she sees. This is a woman named Mrs. Gale, I believe is how they identify her. This was on Fox News saying, hey, bring them on. What do we have to lose? I would bet for you that this is how 90+% of people that actually are living in crime-ravaged neighborhoods feel. Listen to cut one.
My name is Miss Gail. My grandson is Gregory Wilson III. You got people still robbing, stealing, killing. Just the other day, a 5-year-old boy got killed, shot in the head. It's like it's never going to end. So if Mr. Trump want to bring these troops to Chicago, hey, bring them on. What we got to lose? You know what I'm saying? Put some fear in, let them know that they're here. They want, to protect the city of Chicago. We got elderly people afraid to ride the red line. You got kids can't go outside and play. You got women don't want to walk at night alone.
Look, this is one of the things that I think is not getting enough attention. It's not going to shock you that most mainstream media is not focused on this. It's very easy for wealthy people who have gated communities and have private security and or have their own community police that are rapidly responding to any issue that might arise. It's very easy for those people to say, hey, it's safe in this city. We don't need Trump. We don't need National Guard. We don't need more police. But the people that actually are in areas where crime takes place would overwhelmingly welcome being able to be more secure. And this is where I think the true lie of the Black Lives Matter protests are exposed, because essentially what Karen Bass in L.A. and Brandon Johnson in Chicago and Governor Wes Moore of the state of Maryland are actually saying is Black lives don't matter if it requires more police officers. And we know that those police officers and those National Guard troops save, and the people that they save lives, and the people's lives that they save are overwhelmingly black, yet they don't want the help.
Well, what you're seeing are a lot of people coming forward and being very loud about how they don't need more police, maybe, but they don't want more police for the people who do need and want more police. This is a common thing, right? This is one of the tragic realities of this debate is that you have so many wealthy, influential people. I'm talking now on the politician and media side. Also, are we going to talk about how Ilhan Omar is worth so much money now? Is this
you and I were talking about this off air yesterday?
I mean, not like right now, but can we just put a pin in that one? How are all these politicians getting so rich out of nowhere? We don't really understand what's going on. I think that's worth asking a little more about. But these people who are in politics and media and in general out there who are saying you don't need more police, you don't need more law enforcement help in these areas, they are unfortunately relegating, they're consigning others to continue to live in crime-infested neighborhoods.
Yes.
This is a choice, and this can be stopped. People who just want you to believe, and I know you all know this, but people who want you to believe that there have to be 500 to 600 murders a year in Chicago just because that's how it goes are lying. Or they're idiots. It's just not true. It does not have to be that way. In fact, there have been times where the city of Chicago, if you went back far enough, it certainly had nowhere near that number of murders. So, Clay, I think that this is something that Republicans are going to continue to win on as an issue. I think they're going to continue to bring more people over to their side because this is a just reasonable or unreasonable thing. This isn't something that, as we've discussed, should fall along deeply partisan lines, although it does fall along partisan lines. And I would just remind everybody that the BLM 2.0 era, even when that was really going, when they would actually talk to people, when they would do polling in high crime neighborhoods, they might say things like, oh, I want justice for George Floyd, but they'd also say, I think more cops would help. And there's a lot of that. You know, if you look at the real data on this, people who live in high crime neighborhoods want less crime in those neighborhoods, and they have an understanding of we need more cops to get this done. They don't want the cops to use excessive force. They don't want the cops to... And that brings me to body cams for a second here, Clay. which, I've been on this little kick online because it must be said, I remember there was all this talk, all this stuff about, oh my gosh, because, even back in like the Occupy Wall Street era, there were all these anti-cop protests that were part of it, racist murdering cops. They would have these banners up and all this stuff. What body cameras show, whether it's just someone who's being drunk, disorderly, and really entitled, do you know that I'm an assistant district attorney, sir? Excuse me, sir. The cop's like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. You've been trespassed from a premises. Or somebody coming at an individual with a knife. I mean, I just saw this yesterday. Without body cameras, we all know this. The community organizers, whatever that means, would be saying that these were murders committed by cops.
Yes.
And every time there was a minority shot by a police officer, if we didn't have body cameras, if there was any daylight to tell everybody, the national media to tell everybody that this was a racist cop murdering somebody, we'd have to go through that whole national hand-wringing, oh my gosh, racism, and we have to talk about Jim Crow and the legacy of slavery and all these things. Well, with body cameras, what you see is a lot of the cops, Clay, that I see in these incidents are far more patient than I would be as a cop, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, if I saw myself in their shoes, I would have gone to force probably quicker than they do, which says a lot to me.
I mean, the most recent one that I was watching video of yesterday, a woman comes storming at a police officer with a butcher knife. And I'm telling you, if these cameras didn't exist, I can think of 5 or 6 different cases where you watched it on camera and you said, man, that was that cop is lucky to be alive. Because what people don't realize, the camera actually shows you is, and you know this because you're a highly trained marksman, but the amount of time it takes for someone to get to you, even if they don't have a gun, with a knife or with something that they could use in a violent way on you, is almost instantaneous, right?
Well, this is where you get the 20-foot rule. They teach law enforcement, they teach in the intel agencies and military. If somebody's within 20 feet and you have to come out of the draw out of a holster, I know a lot of you are like, Buck, I can draw. Okay, fine. But the average person and the average cop who has a gun is not going to be able to get an aim shot off at somebody storming them from, at an able-bodied male within 20 feet. If they have a knife, they're going to stab you. You might kill them, but they're going to stab you first.
Yeah, and also I think it shows, because what did you hear a lot of? Why don't they just shoot him in the leg instead? Which is one of the most ridiculous when you're being
and a lot
charged.
of these body cameras, you see people get shot in the leg and they're still stabbing.
Yeah, and also you see how hard it is when someone is running at you trying to do ill to you to hit them at period, right? Like, I mean, you're reacting, your body is like, it is, I think it's putting people, because the body cameras, not only are they showing what the officer sees, but they're putting people inside of the officer's body. Right? Because effectively, you then are, everybody wants to play shooter video games, right? Like the Fortnites of the world. There are a ton of them, the Call of Duties that are super popular. When you are standing there in the officer's perspective, I think most people have the reaction, a lot of people do, Buck, that you just had of, man, this officer is actually way more conciliatory than I might well be in this situation.
Well, this also goes to something, this is when you think about this, and this is true of all these different law enforcement debates that happen about what is reasonable and also what the incentives are here. And we have a lot of cops who listen to this show, and we appreciate that. A lot of former cops who listen to this show. All of them know that even in the best of circumstances, in terms of clarity, for a lethal use of force incident, you've taken a human life. There's psychological trauma that comes along with that. You're going to there's going to be an investigation of this. I'm talking about the most clean shoot, so to speak, imaginable. Like somebody running at you with a knife or someone pulling out a gun when you're saying, drop it, drop it, drop it, drop it, on video. They're still going to put you on leave. You've still taken a human life. There's a psychological toll from that. A lot of the military guys know this. And the point is, nobody wants to do that. No one's looking to do that in law enforcement, except in the most extreme and unusual circumstances where you get some kind of a psychopath in there, because there's basically 1 million cops in this country. So you're, a million of anything, you're going to have a couple of lunatics. But in general, they're not trying to do anything other than get home to their families and do their jobs. And, there's that old joke, Clay. It's like, I don't remember all of it, and some of you remember it, but it's, heaven is like the British are the cops, and, and the British are the cops, the Italians are the cooks, the French are I forget what it is. But I always think about how people point to the British as having such good police. And I see here, I'm like, actually, given the amount of violence and stuff that Americans have, that American cops have to go through, American cops are phenomenal. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think if you actually contemplate and look at this, there was, to be fair, a lot of police that were saying, hey, we don't really want body cams on us. Remember, it wasn't but I think increasingly every cop out there is saying, yeah, we've got to have this. It's protected.
I totally butchered this joke. So can I just remind heaven is where the cooks are French, the police are British, the mechanics are German, the lovers are Italian. That was one I couldn't remember. And everything is organized by the Swiss. And hell is where the cooks are British, the mechanics are French, and everything is organized by the Italians. Anyway, you get the idea.
Italy is an amazing country, but boy, oh boy, is it a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to have to get your Wi-Fi, linked up in Italy. That's like a 6-month operation from what I'm told.
And you don't want to have to ask a French person to help you on anything.
I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to disagree on that one. All right. Look, Birch Gold, my friends, years ago, new legislation created the opportunity for you to build your own retirement accounts with 401ks and IRAs. So Congress passed that law when they saw changes in the way people started to move from one company to another. It shifted the responsibility from your employer having to maintain a pension fund or retirement plan to you. It's your responsibility, right? So in that process, we all win because now we can decide how to invest in our lifelong savings account. You can decide where and how you'll grow your retirement. Sure, you could purchase mutual funds, stocks, bonds, long-term CDs, but it's only been the last few years that you could also purchase the one commodity that's grown 40% in value in the last year alone, gold. If you don't own gold yet, you should be giving it serious consideration. Birch Gold Group makes owning physical gold very easy. They can convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA with physical gold, or they can help you buy gold to store in your home safe. Text my name, Buck, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Birch Gold, A-plus rating with a Better Business Bureau, tens of thousands of happy customers. Text the name Buck to 989898 to get started today.
Sometimes all you can do is laugh, and they do a lot of it with the Sunday Hang. Join Clay and Buck as they laugh it up in the Clay and Buck podcast feed on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
We have some changes afoot thanks to RFK Jr. at HHS, Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, and others who are making moves and changing things up after what we saw, in my opinion, and I think many share it, I know Clay shares it, was the absolute abdication of impartiality, science-based medicine, and basic responsibility by the medical establishment during COVID. And that was during the early days, when Trump was reliant on those agencies to act the way that they were supposed to at some level. And then during the Biden years where it just got worse and crazier and more absurd. I just want to tell you something that immediately annoys me is when anyone says they did the best they can. It was complicated. No, absolutely unacceptable, because they weren't arguing then. They weren't arguing we need a vaccine mandate because things are complicated and we're not sure, but we think that this makes sense given. They were saying, shut your face. I don't want to hear it. You're not allowed to go to church. You're allowed to go buy weed, but get the vax or you lose your job. Get the shot or you can't go to a restaurant. We know what's true here. We know what the facts are. They did that, and then they were wrong on top of it. It is unforgivable. There is no excuse for it. And people in the medical profession who pushed this and went along with this should be ashamed of themselves. The airline attendants who were enforcing, masking at their whim. That in some ways was the absolute worst. Like there were people, and I know this has happened to me, There were people who thought, you know what? I'm going to go up to someone now. Your mask has been off your face while you're eating a little too long. I'm going to tell you to please cover up. Think about the mentality. I mean, these are the people the Soviets used as prison guards in the Gulag. They enjoy the little thrill of power and harassing other people. There's something deeply wrong inside of them. They didn't have to do it. I mean, that's the case I always go to, Clay, because you could have just not been a psycho and said, okay, they're eating. I'm going to let them eat their food. You know, that's within the rules. But no, mask up between bites. Sir, you're taking a little too long. Could you mask up between bites? The people who did that should forever hang their heads in shame because they're morons and they're sheep, and they're the reason that there are totalitarianisms that still exist to this day around the world. Unfortunately, in fact, the second largest country in the world is a totalitarian dictatorship. So what does that tell you? Now, let's get into the pushback against the madness here. First of all, Florida Surgeon General, Harvard-trained doctor, Joseph Ladapo, spoke about ending the vaccine mandates in this state, the great state of Florida, under Ron DeSantis' stewardship, a fantastic place. Play 14.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Okay? Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in your body? I don't have that right.
Clay, and I also just throw in there before Dr. Oz. Also, we're going to have him on today, but we got Nicole Sapphire on later. We needed to bring some MD expertise. Here's Dr. Oz against vaccine mandates.
I would definitely not have mandates for vaccinations. This is a decision that a physician and a patient should be making together. The parents love their kids more than anybody else. I could love that kid, so why not let the parents play an active role in this? There are some states now where you're seeing an increase in homeschooling because parents are running from the healthcare system. They can't get healthcare because doctors are unwilling to take the risk of taking care of children who don't want vaccinations because it might impact the way their practices are run. They shouldn't feel pressure from the government to decide what to do with the vaccination schedule. They should do what's the best interest of the person in front of them, let's say it's a child, and what those parents desire. That's how the system is supposed to run.
The floor is yours, sir.
This is one of those situations where, frankly, COVID made me question a lot. And I bet there's a lot of moms and dads out there that are the exact same as me. I didn't question anything on the vaccine schedule for my kids. I've got 17, 14, 10-year-old boys. Obviously, we haven't really been through the vaccine process in a long time. But as soon as COVID happened, I said my kids are not getting the COVID shot. And I was looking at the data. Thankfully, they did not get the COVID shot. I think that a lot of parents out there who did get their kid the COVID shot, probably some of you are listening to us now because you were still willing to go along with the public health establishment. I have a lot of questions about why we have the number of shots that we give our kids now. I do. And look, I am not going to go through Buck, you now have got a baby boy that I remember thinking it seems like they get a lot of shots. More shots than I got when I was a kid, more shots than any of you out there in your 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s got. And I just look around and I do feel like much of what RFK Jr. and the Maha moms are saying is true. It feels to me like we have a lot more sick kids now, a lot more allergies with kids, a lot more public health issues with young kids now than we used to. And I can
tell you this, Clay, this is an ongoing discussion in my house right now. And we are doing both a slow, a spread out in the vaccine schedule, as in taking time between them, and also doing a la carte system for the vaccine system, or the vaccine choices, as in we have a very good MD down here who was, look, if you're going to be my kid's doctor, I got to tell you this. You better not still have a mask up sign in your office, which does still exist in some places. So this doc lives in reality and lived in reality during COVID because he was a Florida-based doc, so he's really good. But I'll just tell you this. I said, Doc, Carrie and I were in the office, and I said, okay, so we can get this one shot, and there's another shot that maybe we get. And he basically was like, look, I was like, I don't think we need to get that second vaccine. What do you think? And he goes, no, you don't need to get that one. That one really, I don't think. And then I said, okay, the first one though, what do you think about this one? He said, look, I'll tell you this. He said, I've looked at the safety profile for a long time. It's gotten even better over the years based on what's in it. He's kind of a more holistic doc. And he said, I'll tell you this, what this prevents, it basically is, for a form of pneumonia that babies gets. He said, when I was doing my residency, it was actually in New York. When he was doing his residency in New York, babies would come in every day and die from that.
Yeah.
So he said,
something I would advise.
For this one, I would advise. It was still our choice. But those are the kind of conversations I think that need, it's a total risk benefit analysis and, not being told, get this or you're not allowed to go to school, or get this or you're a bad person.
I think that there are a lot of, they turned anti-vax into an insult. I actually think it is not, most people are not anti-vax on everything. One. Two, they have turned parents asking, hey, are my kids over medicated, into a design to attack you for asking questions. And my general position as a parent, and I follow this myself, is I don't want to take anything. I just, my wife makes fun of me. I don't even like to take Tylenol. Right? Like, I am just I would rather not put things into my body if I don't have to, and let my immune system work. I've never gotten the COVID shot. I'm glad I never got the COVID shot. And, I hope that I can be healthy and live to 85-ish. That's the number that's in my head where I'm like, I'd like to make it to 85. That feels like a good target. That would mean I got about 40 years left. And I want to, ideally, deal with the medical system as little as I possibly can. I'll give you an example, Buck. I was just talking about this off air, and I'm going to give them a plug here. I'm 46. And so they say, hey, you need to get a colonoscopy, right? Like, I don't want to go to the doctor and get anything. My wife has to get on me to go get a physical. Like, I just don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want anything. I did this home colon guard thing. It seems like an amazing invention. I send off my samples. They review it. They say, you're good. I don't have to spend 2 days getting a colonoscopy, right? I feel like we are over-medicated. And I feel like many parents out there feel this, and you're asking yourselves, is it imperative that my 6-month-old be stuck up like a porcupine quill? I don't know that we need to be doing it, particularly when all of these drug companies, again, this is important, all of these drug companies need you sick in order to basically exist as companies. Now, I'm not maligning all drugs because Buck's pointed out, like, hey, if you're super bipolar, you need treatment, right? Like, there are lots of things out there where the drug companies have done an amazing job helping people who otherwise would not be able to exist in the larger society to exist.
But, if you don't want to have a heart attack, statins are really effective. But if they save a lot of lives.
If you gave me a magic wand and you just said, Clay, you have the ability to do something for healthcare aside from, hey, everybody lives healthy to be 100, right? Something like that. I think we could swipe out kids in particular. I think we could swipe out 75% of all medical treatment on kids, and I think kids would have maybe a better health outcome than drugging them up like we have done.
This is the great unasked or unanswered, I should say, question in the post-Obamacare world, because really what Obamacare was, it just made all of our health care more expensive to subsidize some people, including illegals, as we know, to pay less for their health care. And it was a massive Medicaid expansion. And the most thorough, it's called the Oregon study, the most thorough randomized controlled study of healthcare outcomes ever for Medicaid patients showed that having Medicaid or not having Medicaid made no difference in actual healthcare outcomes. None. Not discernible in the least.
Yes.
So you say, well, what are you spending all this money on? Where's all the money going? And that's when you really start to see things. And one of the failures of the failure of Obamacare is apparent by just look at the cost of the average healthcare premium over the last decade. Do you think, are you getting better healthcare now? You are absolutely not. Yes. And in fact, your healthcare premium has gone up 150%, something like that on average. So yeah, it was healthcare socialism, everybody. They just did it in a clever and creative way, including lying about it.
What do you think the most hated company that everybody has to deal with on a regular basis is?
It used to be the cable company, which, well, I know, but it used to be the cable company, which I always thought the cable company thing was good because it showed you it was a lesson in monopoly for everybody, because monopolies are bad. True monopolies are bad, and they're only enabled by the state.
My kids don't believe this. I was telling them about it. I was like, they were like, how did you used to get, games on? I was like, well, we had to get cable. And they were like, well, how does cable get, and I was like, you move into a new apartment and the cable guy would be like, hey, I'm going to show up at some point between 8 p.m. and 6 p.m. And you basically had
8
to take
a.m.
off work.
8 a.m. and 6 p.m.
8 a.m. and 6, like all day. They didn't give you like in a couple of hours. And they would say they would show up. You had to sit there and wait for them. And if you weren't there, they would just go
show, you had to call and say, pretty please, I'll bake you cookies. Come tomorrow or the next day. Like they had you at their mercy. And that was reality.
I remember one time when I was in college, pretty girl, down the hall. We were jealous. Like, how did you get your cable hooked up already? And she was like, I put on a tank top when the cable guy was walking down the hall. And I was like, hey, can I get you to come? And she's like, yeah, cable guy's yeah, of course.
They call this the Sidney Sweeney effect.
Yes. Cable guy, go figure, sees a pretty girl in a tank top. He finds a way to get her cable hooked up. It's not even a movie. Although I've heard those kind of movies exist. You'd be amazed what people can find when it's time to move out of their family home after years, even decades. We're going through the process right now of moving out of my house, and we are taking all of the family photos off the bookshelves, everything else. We are stacking them up, and I am thinking right now, even for relatively recent photos, man, we really need to get these digitally preserved, because my kids were born, the first one in 2008, and that was before everything had taken off necessarily. You had the digital cameras, if you remember those days, but you still printed out a lot of the photos. And a lot of those early baby pictures for my son are not now digitized. We need to take care of that. And you probably have got those if you got kids around my age, but you've also got tons of photos from when you were a kid, probably from when your parents were kids, maybe when your grandparents were kids. Do you want to preserve those forever and turn them into digital files? That's what Legacy Box does. They hand transfer everything by hand, one videotape at a time. I traveled down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, saw their facility myself, saw how much care they take with all of your family's memories, whether it's VHS, whether it's 8mm film reels, whether it is old camera photos, old school photos. They can preserve anything and turn it into a digital file. And right now, during the summer, right as summer's coming to a close, before the holiday rush starts, you can get Legacy Box for 50% off. All you have to do is go to legacybox.com, use my name Clay. That's legacybox.com, my name Clay, for 50% off. Get hooked up today.
Stories of freedom, stories of America. Inspirational stories that unite us all. Each day, spend time with Clay and Buck. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now you can stream Fox News live on the Fox One app. Stay on top of breaking news and the biggest stories live as they happen, all from the Fox voices you trust, bringing you the coverage you won't find anywhere else.
Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Go to Fox One for complete terms and conditions. Fox One, we live for live, streaming now.
Welcome back in, Clay, Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We're rolling through the Thursday edition of the program. We bring in our friend, Dr. Nicole Sapphire, part of the Clay and Buck Podcast Network. You can also see her regularly on Fox News. She does fantastic work across the media spectrum. And Dr. Sapphire, we will start with the fireworks that have just come as as Robert Kennedy was testifying in front of many different senators out there about what exactly is going on as it pertains to rules on COVID shots and rules on vaccines in general and science and everything else. What did you take away from that testimony, and how would you assess what is going on right now from a health care perspective?
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, I'll tell you, I tried to live stream as much as that Senate Finance Committee with RFK Jr. as I could. I'm in the hospital myself, so in between patients. But, there were a lot of fireworks. There were name calling, there were yelling, there was eye rolling. I mean, people were frustrated. But here's what I find as a layperson, but also someone in the medical community, what I find frustrating watching here. This was all about people just trying to get talking points out for media headlines. This was not a conversation. This is not for the greater good of America, what happens in these committee hearings. And that is what I find the most frustrating. I think RFK Jr., Secretary Kennedy, I thought he had made some really strong points. I think some of the senators made some really strong points. And ultimately, I think that there was more arguing of semantics than anything at all. And unfortunately for me, looking at this from the outside in, throughout all of COVID, we became a very fractured society. And all of a sudden, we have weaponized public health. We have politicized it. And all I'm looking for is what are we going to do to bring the country together to try and get politics out of public health, out of our healthcare system as best we can. I mean, you never will be able to completely, but the best we can. And how are we going to unify the nation? And unfortunately, watching some of this tells me that we are nowhere closer to unifying the nation as we were 4 years ago.
Well, I want to have you react here to an exchange, Dr. Sapphire, between RFK Jr. and Senator Wyden. It's about 40 seconds long. This is cut 18. Hit it.
I don't see any evidence that you have any regrets about anything you've done or plans to change it. And my last comment is, I hope that you will tell the American people how many preventable child deaths are an acceptable sacrifice for enacting an agenda that I think is fundamentally cruel and defies common sense.
Senator, you've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing. You never asked the question why it's happening. Why is this happening? Today, for the first time in 20 years, we learned that infant mortality has increased in our country. It's not because I came in here. It's because of what happened during the Biden administration that we're going to end.
How much, Dr. Sapphire, of the apparent animosity that these Democrat senators show toward RFK Jr. is because he's RFK Jr. and they don't like what he has stood for in the past, or just because he happens to be Trump's HHS guy?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And first of all, that was one of RFK Jr.'s strongest messages, in my opinion, during that hearing, was everybody was criticizing him. And he's like, it turned to crap under you guys. You've been in office for decades sitting on this committee. And this is the first time we're having these conversations about making people healthier again. So I thought that was rather cheeky, but also very poignant. Senator Wyden came out saying that he is going to be releasing a report today. He asked to put it into evidence that supposedly will show the damage to health care of the American people done under RFK Jr., highlighting chaos, corruption, and higher health care costs. And yet he said these things, but we did not see that report or the data. So again, Wyden, I thought, was trying to get some of those talking points. At the end of the day, and this is something I've said now, for the last several weeks that I get some criticism on, is that we already know Trump derangement syndrome is real. I mean, one of these days it'll be a diagnosable condition that as a medical doctor I can code it and it'll be a true diagnosis. But the RFK derangement syndrome is real as well. And so for me, maybe he is not the perfect messenger to be out in front of the camera talking about the work that they're doing behind the scenes. He is bringing a ton of insight and a ton of innovation and a whole new thought process to the HHS. They're finally starting to look at root causes of chronic illness. They're trying to make a systems more efficient. These are all great things. But the moment he steps in front of the camera or gets behind the microphone, half of the country is turning it off, just like they always do with President Trump. And so when it comes to public health, it would be great for me if there was another spokesperson who actually came out to deliver that message, because as you see, if you look at social media right now, people are just making fun of Secretary Kennedy. They're making fun of the fact that he was breathing heavily into the microphone. Forget the fact that he has a neurological condition, and what they're doing actually is grossly inappropriate by making fun of someone, but they don't like him, and that's the bottom line.
Dr. Sapphire, I think the biggest issue that we face as a country as it pertains to public health is in the wake of COVID, many people, myself included, have lost all faith in public health so-called experts to give us the best possible advice. What would your advice be to try to cure what I believe is the biggest issue in America today, which is just lack of trust in the wake of what happened with COVID?
I mean, that's a very complicated question, and there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all answer to that. But part of that is going to be getting people that are well-respected on both sides of the aisle into the HHS, into the CDC. We undermine trust when we like right now, what we're dealing with right now, and you're looking at the conversation is surrounding vaccines. The CDC, we're seeing the fallout from what happened because not only are parents questioning the COVID vaccines because the CDC doubled down on the mandates long after science changed, the reality is now parents are questioning all vaccines and just really questioning public health in general. And so we have to take a big step back. And what was settled science for the last several decades, if people truly believe that it's still settled science and the data is there to support it, then you need to show the data. Because just saying, well, this is what's the right thing to do, that doesn't work anymore. We can't have that paternalistic attitude when we're talking to the American people because the American people are educated. They want to make informed decisions. And when you have this digital era where all of a sudden they're realizing that the truth is at their fingertips and it's not necessarily just from the mouthpieces that they're seeing from the CDC or whatnot, you have to make sure that you are being very nuanced in the recommendations for public health. Part of that is going to be right now, RFK Jr. is having to put together the Vaccine Advisory Committee. He got rid of all the original members because he said that they were essentially all part of, the industry standard and it was time for them to go. And while I may not disagree with a lot of them needing to go, he's kind of swinging that pendulum far the other way by putting all new members on that are part of his inner circle and his inner thinking. We have to make sure that we have full dialogue and debate on these committees. So we can't just go from one inner circle to the next. We need to start building these institutions that are with people who are going to last much longer than just an administration.
Are there just way too many vaccines, Dr. Sapphire, in your opinion, in the suggested schedule for children? I think the number we had Dr. McCary on, and he said it was something like 70 or something along those lines over the course of, now I know that some of those are multiple shots and they're given over years. That just seems like a lot of shots.
Sure. So in my humble opinion, I think that we need to look at the recommended childhood vaccine schedule. What's happening in Florida, where they're just trying to do away with all vaccine mandates, that's a completely different conversation. What I'm talking about is not necessarily implementing mandates or recalling getting rid of the mandates. I'm like, let's reevaluate what we're even recommending. Can we change the timeline? Does every single child need all of these vaccines? Because the reality is not all vaccines are created equal. Lumping them together just completely erases the science. The MMR vaccine, the one with measles, that provides decades of protection, while the pertussis one, that immunity wanes within months. And the public health messaging has to acknowledge the differences because we're undermining trust when we pretend that every vaccine works the same. And Americans truly deserve nuance. I think we can change the vaccine schedule. We could actually decrease the amount of vaccines children get without risking the safety of the individual child or the community. But it just means you have to open up that conversation, and you have to be willing to have that conversation because, unfortunately, you have a lot of people who have their head in the sand right now with that vacuum thought mentality of, well, if you start changing it now, you're going to change the whole thing, and that's going to creep in vaccine hesitancy. But if you don't acknowledge the people's concerns and you don't acknowledge all vaccines aren't created equal, you're actually promoting vaccine hesitancy more than anyone else.
How can people find your podcast and dive in if they haven't already, Dr. Sapphire?
Well, thanks to you guys. Wellness Unmasked with Dr. Nicole Sapphire is part of the Clay and Buck family. We have a weekly rundown every Friday at 10 a.m. with about just 5 minutes of me telling you what happened that week. We're going to go all through the hearing tomorrow. And then on Tuesdays, dropping at 10, Wellness Unmasked, you have a longer full episode. Next week, you will hear me with Jennifer Gallardi. She's the Senior Policy Analyst for Restoring American Wellness at the Heritage Foundation. We talk all things Make America Healthy Again. We get into a little bit of a healthy debate on some things, and I'll tell you, it's a great interview, so please make sure to catch it out. I'm also on X, Instagram, and Fox News.
I gave you all that, but I meant to ask you this as well. So I encourage you to go follow Dr. Sapphire
on
there.
the Clay and Buck Podcast Network, Wellness Unmasked, Dr. Sapphire.
Tremendous collection of talent there. What's the worst date you've ever been on, Doctor? Because Buck brought up The English Patient. I realized that I went on a high school date to watch that movie, which was not a great movie to go on as a high schooler. We just had Katie Miller on. Do you recall the worst date that you've ever been on in your life? Is there one that stands out?
I think the worst date I've ever been on in my life was my first kind of date, or not even a date, but when I met my husband, because we actually met in a wine bar during a medical conference, but I was drinking hot tea, and this guy comes up to me, and he's thinking that my tea is spiked, and the whole time he just cannot believe that I'm just drinking herbal tea while sitting in a wine bar, and it was very awkward and very uncomfortable, and 20 years later, we're married with kids.
Wait, how did he make the transition? Like, how did he go from like, hey, like I think something's been spiked in your tea to, I'd like your phone number.
Oh, he was asking for my phone number the whole time. It took about 2 years for us to actually go on a date, but the man was persistent, and I'll tell you, persistence pays off.
I had a very wise man tell me for many years, persistence is the key in all things. So there you go. Dr. Sapphire, thank you so much. Guys, go check out Wellness Unmasked on the Clay and Buck Podcast Network. When you switch your cell phone to Pure Talk, you're saving money every month without sacrificing quality because Pure Talk operates on America's most dependable 5G network. They use the same towers and network as the big wireless companies, but don't have the same overpriced costs, so they're able to pass on the savings to you. The Pure Talk price point, get this, $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data. Compare that to your current monthly cell phone bill and calculate the savings. You could save $600 or more every year, and with a family plan, more than $1,000 a year. And with Pure Talk's customer service team, which is based in the U.S., you can switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. You can also keep your phone and number so nothing changes except the reduced size of your bill. Using your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say the keywords Clay and Buck to make the switch. You'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck to start saving today. Pure Talk, wireless by Americans for Americans.
Want to be in the know when you're on the go? The Team 47 Podcast. Trump highlights from the week. Sundays at noon Eastern in the Clay and Buck Podcast feed. Find it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart Podcast.